very good morning, students. Today we're going to discuss about a topic which is very important topic in the chapter human reproduction. The topic is menstrual cycle, or also known as ovarian cycle. In previous lecture we have studied about just an introduction about menstrual cycle, and we have told you about four different phases in menstrual cycle. Four phases are menstrual phase, follicular phase, ovulatory phase or ovulation, and luteal phase. So there are four phases in menstrual cycle. So here is the diagram of the menstrual cycle, and here we will discuss about the changes in ovary, secretion of hormones and their level during ovulation, before ovulation and after ovulation, and what changes in the uterine wall in the female reproductive system. So to understand this menstrual cycle or ovarian cycle, you need to know about four different phases, that is the menstrual phase, follicular phase, ovulatory phase, and luteal phase. And after these four phases you need to know about four different hormones uh, which have very prominent role or function in the menstrual cycle. So these four hormones are progesterone, FSH, follicular stimulating hormone, this LH, luteinizing hormone, and estrogen. So we would discuss about these four hormones, their level, their secretions, and how do they affect the menstrual cycle or ovarian cycle. Okay. So here in this diagram you can see over here we have written uterine wall. So through this we will come to know about what changes occur in the uterine wall of female reproductive body, ovarian hormones means secretions and the level of ovarian hormones during this cycle, and changes in ovary, what changes we see during this menstrual cycle. So these three different actually the stages where we would see uh, the various changes, various the hormones, their secretions, and their impact during menstrual cycle. So as we know, we have four different phases in menstrual cycle: menstrual phases, menstrual phase, follicular phase, ovulatory phase, and luteal phase. And we begin with menstrual phase. Okay, and as you know, it's the menstrual cycle is for 28 days, 1 or 2 days more or less, it could be, but to be exact, 28 days. Okay, so let's begin. As you see over here, this is uterine wall. What would happen? As I told you that we will start with the menstrual phase, and menstrual phase is actually marked with vaginal bleeding. Why? Because that vaginal bleeding is uh, occurred because of the loss of endometrium layer, endometrium lining, along with blood vessels. So due to loss of endometrium lining along with blood vessels, there is vaginal bleeding during menstrual phase, or you can say first 5 days of this menstrual cycle. So this is day 1 to day 5 is menstrual phase, and this menstrual phase is marked with vaginal bleeding. What is the reason? Here you can see we would find the reason behind vaginal bleeding, behind the loss of endometrium lining. So the main reason is the fluctuation in hormonal activity, and the hormone is progesterone. Okay, so here you can see this is uterine wall. just to show you, this is uterine wall, and here you can see the loss of uterine lining. There is no major folds or there is no thickness during this menstrual phase in uterine wall. So this uterine lining or endometrium lining is lost along with blood vessels. The reason is very low progesterone level. So progesterone level, the progesterone hormones level is very low during the menstrual phase. So due to very low progesterone level, what happens? Uterine lining is lost along with blood vessels, which causes vaginal bleeding during the first 5 days, day 1st to day 5 of menstrual phase. Okay, and this yellow line is just to show you the level of the different levels of progesterone during the whole of menstrual cycle. So now just stuck to this. This is menstrual phase, and uterine wall is actually is not thick at that time, and endometrium lining, uterine lining is lost along with blood vessels due to very low progesterone hormones level. So due to low progesterone hormone, what happens? Due to low progesterone hormone level, this low progesterone level or low progesterone hormone stimulates pituitary gland. Okay, so just because of having very low progesterone, this stimulates pituitary gland, and when pituitary gland stimulated by low progesterone level or low progesterone hormone level, it secretes or it secretes or it enhances the secretion of FSH, means follicular stimulating hormone, So this FSH hormones level increases, or its secretion increases, enhances, just because of having the low level of progesterone. So low level of progesterone actually stimulates pituitary gland, and then pituitary gland secretes or enhances the secretion of FSH, follicular stimulating hormone. And when FSH is released, what would happen? This menstrual cycle now is shifted towards the next phase. Why? Because of the secretion of FSH. So when FSH is released by pituitary gland, this menstrual phase now has been shifted to the next phase, means next 6-7 days, day 6 to day 12. The phase is follicular phase. Name FSH follicular phase. Okay. So next phase is follicular phase, and in this phase what happens, as you know, follicular cells, they get accumulated inside the ovary, and one cell among these follicular cells, one cell now would start becoming primary oocyte, then secondary oocyte, and later on becomes an oocyte or egg or ovum. So FSH is marked with development in follicular cell, and among many follicular cell, one cell would start becoming primary oocyte, then this primary oocyte enlarges in size, and then it becomes Graafian follicle, or this primary oocyte becomes secondary oocyte, and this secondary oocyte is enclosed within this structure which is known as Graafian follicle. Okay, so during follicular phase, what happens? Graafian follicle is formed, and inside the Graafian follicle there is secondary oocyte. So during this phase, what happens? When FSH secretion increases, when FSH secretion increases at a very time, because this FSH is released by pituitary gland, and due to the release of FSH, the follicular cells, they start doing their function, and among follicular cell, one cell now would start becoming primary oocyte, then that would become secondary oocyte, and then oocyte or ovum. Along with the secretion of FSH, female sex hormone is known as estrogen. Estrogen, which is ovarian hormone, that's why I have shown the estrogen or its level over here, ovarian hormones, and this is here just because this is secreted by pituitary gland. So along with FSH secretion, another hormone which is known as female sex hormone, that is estrogen, is released, and its level becomes very high. Its level becomes very high during follicular phase, and due to this marked with, and what happens to the uterine wall? This would start becoming thick. This uterine wall starts becoming thick, and now in the phase of follicular phase, this thickness is around 2 to 3 millimeter. Okay, so during follicular phase, this thickness is around 2 to 3 millimeter. So follicular phase is marked with high secretion of FSH, follicular stimulating hormone, and high secretion of estrogen or female sex hormone, which is also known as ovarian hormone. And this would take place from day 6 to day 12 or day 13. Now, what happens next? Next phase is very important phase, which is known as ovulatory phase, which may take place from day 13 to day 16, and to be more exact, day 14, or on 40th day ovulation occur. What is ovulation? This Graafian follicle actually releases secondary oocyte. So release of secondary oocyte from Graafian follicle is termed as ovulation, and which takes place at 40th day, or in other sense you can say that this Graafian follicle releases secondary oocyte, and that secondary oocyte is released into the uterine tube or fallopian tube for next 12 hours in order to get fused with male sperm. Okay, so at 40th day, what would happen? Ovulatory phase, okay, or ovulation would occur during the day 13 up to day 16, to be more exact, day 14th. What would happen? Here you can see that estrogen level becomes very high during follicular phase. Okay, so because of very high estrogen level, what would happen? Due to very high estrogen level, this stimulates, means high estrogen level stimulates pituitary gland, and this pituitary gland in turn secretes, or in turn controls the secretion of FSH, or in other sense you can say the secretion of FSH is now controlled, or it decreases, means decrease in FSH secretion, and sudden increase or sudden secretion of this luteinizing hormone. Okay, so luteinizing hormone is secreted, and it becomes, or its level becomes very high, and FSH levels decreases. And how does it take place? Because of having very high estrogen level. So just because of decreasing level of FSH and increasing level of LH, luteinizing hormone, always do remember ovulation, that means release of secondary oocyte from Graafian follicle, is marked with high level of luteinizing hormone. When LH level is very high, that means ovulation has occurred or ovulation going to be occurred. Okay, so this high level of LH or luteinizing hormone causes ovulation. Here you can see ovulation. Actually, one more thing, this FSH level remains high till the day of ovulation. Okay, so right from its release, FSH release, up to the ovulation, it remains high, and as ovulation begins, its level suddenly drops and LH levels becomes very high. So high LH leads to ovulation, which is release of secondary oocyte. Here you can see this Graafian follicle is now releasing this secondary oocyte. This secondary oocyte now would enter in uterine tube or fallopian tube in order to fuse with male sperm for for at least 12 hours, means 10 to 13 hours. If this secondary oocyte uh, will wait for male sperm to come and fuse with this secondary oocyte. Okay. Okay. Actually, when sperm enters inside the female reproductive body and this secondary oocyte has been reached, if this secondary oocyte has been reached in the fallopian tube, and at the very time male sperm enters inside the female reproductive body, meiosis II happens and this secondary oocyte becomes ooted ovum or a matured egg. Okay. So after this follicular phase, at 14th day, what would happen? Ovulation occurs, which is marked by high level of LH and very low level of FSH. And just after ovulation, 30th to 16th day, last phase, which is luteal phase. Why it is luteal phase? Because when this Graafian follicle releases this secondary oocyte, this Graafian follicle now would become corpus luteum. And as you know, this corpus luteum is also known as temporary endocrine gland, which secretes progesterone hormone. And due to the secretion of progesterone hormone, this hormone maintains uterine lining. Here you can see. Now uterine lining is around 5 to 6 millimeter. Okay, the thickening of uterine wall is around 5 to 6 millimeter, because it is ready. Actually, it is ready to have embryonic development. Okay, so after ovulation, what is happening? Corpus luteum. Now, the formation of corpus luteum, this corpus luteum would act as temporary endocrine gland, which would secrete progesterone, which maintains uterine lining during luteal phase, which occurs from day 17 to day 28. And if there is no fertilization, if there is no entry of sperm inside the female reproductive system, what would happen? This corpus luteum would start degenerating and becomes corpus albicans. Okay, so here you can see I have written over here high level of LH responsible for ovulation. So it's all about the menstrual cycle, different levels of the hormones. Like progesterone, it is very low. Due to very low progesterone level, what would happen? Endometrium lining is lost along with blood vessels. Okay, this level and the progesterone level keeps low all the time, but just after ovulatory phase, when luteal phase begins, and formation of this corpus luteum, which would secrete progesterone, its level becomes high during luteal phase, and after it would become corpus albicans. There is no secretion of progesterone now, so if there is no fertilization, so its level now becomes low. Similarly, ovarian hormone, which is estrogen, its level becomes very high during follicular phase, and because of its high level, this stimulates pituitary gland. In turn, this pituitary gland controls the secretion of FSH, or secretion of FSH decreases, and sudden increase in the secretion of luteinizing hormone due to high level of luteinizing hormone, which is responsible for ovulation. That means release of secondary oocyte from this Graafian follicle. And it's, you can see this menstrual phase, follicular phase, ovulatory phase, and luteal phase. So it's all about menstrual cycle. If you have any doubt, please you can do ask question in the comment box, and I would answer over there. Thank you very much.